Hello everybody, this is your instructor, Carl Peterson. By the end of this presentation, you will have learned everything you need to know in order to complete the weekly MindMap discussion assignment in the most efficient way possible. This presentation includes information on how to access the MindMap discussion, how to contribute to the MindMap discussion in a manner that earns you credit, the rules applying to the MindMap discussion assignment, and even advice about how to complete the MindMap discussion in the most efficient way possible. Let's begin with an overview of each presentation section. To begin with, we will answer the question, what is a MindMap discussion? This particular section will cover the reason for the MindMap's design and what information you will need in order to complete the assignment. The next section will answer the question, how do I complete the assignment, in which the teacher actually shows you himself how and where you can access our course's MindMap discussion and the various functions of the MindMap you can use to complete the assignment. The final section answers the question, is there anything else I need to know, which includes the specific rules which apply to the MindMap, why those rules exist, specific details and useful information about each rule, and finally a simple list of actions provided by the instructor which should help you complete the assignment in a manner that adheres to the MindMap rules in the most efficient way possible. So to begin with, what exactly is a MindMap discussion? The simple answer is that the MindMap discussion is an assignment designed to be a simulation of a real-time in-class discussion. In class discussions, multiple minds with people from different perspectives and backgrounds are constantly thinking about the same topic, which increases their understanding and knowledge of the various ways this topic applies to their lives and the lives of other people, which benefits everyone participating in the discussion, since multiple minds are collectively learning about the same topic. While this is occurring, all students observing the discussion are exposed to this continual exploration of the discussion's topic, allowing them to also benefit from the experience. In-class discussion also constantly causes students to continually go over the same information, indirectly teaching them through repetition important knowledge about the course. The MindMap discussion is designed to, again, simulate the same effect of a class discussion in a completely asynchronous, a fancy word for never meeting at the same place and time, online course, but also with the collective knowledge gained from highlighting specific connections of course knowledge with other fields of study, and information contained online, providing students with something that visually shows just how much a specific class topic truly does affect the lives of themselves and those around them. Thus, in some ways, the MindMap discussion may be superior to an in-class discussion, thus why the MindMap discussion is used within this course. In order to complete the MindMap discussion, you are going to need the following information. Because the MindMap focuses upon how the wisdom from philosophers in our course's weekly readings affect the world the student lives within, you will need to have completed the weekly readings in order to contribute to the MindMap discussion assignment. Secondly, you will, of course, need to be able to access the MindMap itself. However, the URL for the MindMap discussion is rather complicated. Therefore, for ease of use, the link of the online course MindMap is provided within each weekly MindMap discussion section within our Canvas Introduction to Philosophy course website. Thus, all you need to proceed to that URL, select it, and then you will be able to contribute to the MindMap discussion. Finally, if you choose to cite your sources, you will need to be able to find and cite online media and be able to upload it to the MindMap. Since you now know what exactly is the MindMap discussion, and since you also know the information you need to complete the assignment, let's move on to the next section, namely how you access and complete the MindMap discussion assignment. Unlike the other sections on this presentation, I'm going to show you directly how to access our course's online discussion, the various ways you can contribute to the MindMap discussion, including the sources which you can upload, and how to properly cite the various connections between one subject material to another. To begin with, you are going to need to go into the course's weekly MindMap discussion section, which is located in each weekly module. Okay, so let's go down to our weekly modules. And as you can notice, see there's the Week 2 presentation, the Week 2 reading connections, and the Week 2 MindMap discussion. So, select this. There you go. Now, as you can see, there are 2 optional questions for which you can choose to answer. However, under these 2 options, there is a link entitled the MindMap discussion link. This link is how you access the MindMap discussion. Select it, and it should bring you to our course's MindMap discussion. And as you can see, we are now at our Introduction to Philosophy MindMap. Now, when you access this MindMap discussion, you will notice there already are a few bubbles or MindMap ideas. At the top, there are various fields of study which you can identify connections to the potential student postings within each MindMap discussion. So down here. At the bottom, there is each week's MindMap discussion questions. So let's start with showing you exactly where to post your weekly discussion chain comment. Go to the week for which you are posting your MindMap discussion comment. You will notice there is a small plus sign next to the MindMap discussion. Clicking it opens up to that week's weekly MindMap discussion questions. In this case, it will be week 2's. Once you have decided which chain you are going to provide a response to, you then must add an idea to that option's discussion chain. To do this, select the bubble for which you are going to respond, and either press the plus symbol at the top of the page or hit a tab. So, going over here, we could either hit the plus or a tab. So I'm going to hit the plus sign, and boom. This is where you will need to remember something. No matter how you post a response to a specific comment on the MindMap chain, it must be either written or verbal because, again, this is supposed to simulate an in-class discussion. Therefore, this means that it could be a video with a verbal component, it could be a text answer, or a document with text on it, or if you have the ability to upload a soundbite from your computer, that too would also fit with the parameters necessary to receive credit for the MindMap discussion. Thus, let's do the easy answer and just type directly in a response to this question. As you can see, all you have to do is type your answer directly into the newly created MindMap idea. And after you do so, you can also do various actions which can personalize your text response by clicking this and opening it up. And as you can see, here are all those options. However, please note, to keep on all your responses, the text should be no larger than 14 font, so that you don't take up the whole page and everyone can see your answer. Also, while you have your idea still selected, if you go to the right of this area down here, you'll notice that you also have the option of selecting a video directly for your idea. In order to do this, go over to the Browse Video button and select it. As you can see, you can select from several options for uploading a video directly from internet sources. You can either directly write a URL, or you can pick from YouTube, Vimeo, Dailymotion. So you see URL, YouTube, Vimeo, Dailymotion. If you select from one of the latter 3 options, you can use keywords for a specific video. And then, once you have found the video you want to use, you can select it and then push the Use Selected Video button. Your video should now be within your idea, your MindMap idea box. So for example, hit YouTube, and we are going to search for Socrates. And I can just select this video, Use Selected Video, and now it's up in my box. When you still have your box selected here, you can choose a specific file to upload as well. There's also the ability to link a URL, to add comments, to provide notes, and so drop the files or add a file by clicking this. And you can do it using Google File, Local File, Dropbox, or even Evernote to do so. Having now done that, you can do the final option, which is to point out the various connections from these bubbles that are made to the other fields of study over here. In order to do this, again, select your idea or any person's idea, and then go up here, and you'll see that there is a relationship between ideas, and you can do so by either pushing this button to start that relationship or hit Alt-C. Yep. Once you do that, you'll notice that an arrow has effectively appeared. And you can take this and you can point it out to a connection such as art, mathematics, science, social studies, or any other field that you can create. In order to receive credit for your connection, you are going to select this and add a label. The label must contain your name, along with an explanation for why there is a connection between your post as well as the field of study for which you wish to point out a connection to. If you do this 3 times, you will then be able to receive credit through that way. And with that, you now know step by step how to access our mind map, the various ways into which you can successfully complete the assignment, including how you can implant sources into your material, as well as identifying connections between specific areas of knowledge other than philosophy. Which brings us to the final section of the presentation, namely, is there anything else I need to know? Which details the specifics about the rules which apply to the mind map discussion, and what the instructor considers to be the most important and efficient means of completing the mind map discussion assignment, which fits with these specific parameters. Let's begin with the specific rules which apply to the mind map discussion. The first rule is you are supposed to post 2 detailed comments in response to the last comment posted in either one of the individual mind map discussion chains. You also are supposed to support at least one of your responses with a legitimate source of information from the internet, or highlight 3 connections between your response, the responses of other students, and specific areas of study other than philosophy. This rule is overall just an outline of what you need to do in order to successfully complete the mind map discussion assignment each week. For more specifics about what constitutes an acceptable answer, can effectively be found within the mind map discussion rubric. A good thing to remember is that you cannot post a response to your own comment. This should be common sense, because the whole idea is to have different people think about the same idea, and then each person affect it as the mind map chain progresses. Having yourself agree, disagree, or support yourself would either be A, rhetorical, B, contradictory, or C, also rhetorical and unnecessary, since you could have just put a source in your own comment to begin with. So, no, you can't have a conversation with yourself as entertaining as I would find that to be. It should also go without mentioning that a good point to remember is that it is possible, however, to still add 2 comments to the same mind map chain. Technically speaking, you can complete the assignment by adding a comment to both of the chains, or you can post your first comment on one chain, wait for someone else to make their contribution after you, and then finally post your own response after this person's comment. So, simply because you cannot post a comment to yourself, you could, hypothetically, post 2 comments to the same mind map thread. The choice, of course, is up to you. Just so you know also, the instructor comments do count as student comments. As such, treat them as you would a student response when you encounter them. Also, your sources must be relevant and appropriate to the actual mind map discussion, so before you post something, ask yourself if its context does actually relate to the class source material. Now, don't get me wrong, I love originality. If you can somehow find a way to show some sort of clear, distinct philosophical point through support from a video of kittens attacking someone, then by all means go ahead and do so. But just remember that the internet, although vast, certainly has a lot of information on it, and you should treat this discussion as one that you would have in a real online course. So just remember that, because if you post something I deem inappropriate, I will possibly label your comment as a junk comment. Finally, you will need to label all the connections with your name along with an explanation of the connection and why it connects to that specific different field of study other than philosophy. Again, this is to make sure that a person is not just randomly pointing arrows to get credit, as I, the teacher, can identify who makes which comments, and finally, because other students need to be able to understand the connection to other areas of study, or else they cannot understand or learn from the assignment. So, in short, if you label and provide an explanation for all your connections, then you will receive credit for it. If you do not, you will not receive credit for them. Which brings us to the second rule, rule number 2. Students can post multiple comments, but students providing 2 or more junk comments and connections will receive 0 credit on the assignment. I define a junk comment or connection as a comment or connection which has little to no substance. I define a junk comment or connection as a comment or connection which has little to no substance or relevance to the mind map discussion and theoretically can make it impossible to allow others the ability to complete the mind map discussion assignment. How is this possible? Well, let's say a person starts to post random comments or even just random noise to various student mind map comments. If that person continually does this, and rule number 2 did not exist, then no other student could make a comment which could be worth credit, since the only posted comments would have little to no substance to build off of. I created rule number 2 to fix this issue. If you want to know the specifics about what can be defined as a junk comment, simply look at the description of the category where the student would earn little to no points on the MindMap rubric. A junk comment fits these parameters since that category has no substance or relevance to the course, aside perhaps from the grammatical one, namely because it provides little to no grammar that could have errors. Although if it did have significant amount of text, it would still be considered a junk comment if it did poorly in the rubric area of content and argumentation. If I find a junk comment, I will delete them. And if a person posts too many junk comments, I'll block them from the mind map and give them no credit for the mind map assignment. Which brings us to our final section, namely the simplest way to complete the mind map discussion assignment. If you follow these steps, you will always complete the mind map discussion assignment in the least amount of conceivable time. The first step is to write only one of your mind map discussion responses, so pick one action, then before you post it, complete the comment. While you're doing this, include any of your sources with your comment, and don't worry about any potential connections yet. After you have completed your first comment, before you post it, check to see if anyone else posted on the same mind map discussion chain. If someone else did post a comment, then you have two choices. You can either rewrite your response so that it is somehow relates to what the person just posted on the same mind map discussion chain, or you can write a completely new response to either of the mind map discussion option chains. If you choose to rewrite your comment, I suggest you be clever about it. Remember that your comment was still relevant to the mind map discussion chain rather recently, since the mind map discussion hasn't had enough time to dramatically change context. So making a few changes to your comment and still have it be relevant to the most recent piece of the discussion should be pretty easy. After you have finally posted your response, then point out any potential connections to other areas of knowledge. This is based upon efficiency because you don't have to worry about removing any of those connections since you've already decided to wait to post your comment until you made sure that it was on a specific place in the chain. And the final step is to repeat steps 1 through 4 with the second mind map comment. Again, this sounds like a bunch, but in practice it actually is pretty simple. Make one comment and put all the connections, then do the same with the other one. If you do this, you stand the least likelihood of creating a comment that will not fit the parameters, which will give you credit. But again, so long as you complete the assignment your way, you can follow whatever procedure you want. This is just to help you as best as I can so you can get out of there and have a life beyond this course. Which brings us to the end of this presentation. You now have everything you need to know in order to successfully complete the MindMap discussion every week in the most efficient way possible. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Otherwise, I wish you all very well and look forward to your various contributions to our weekly MindMap discussion chains. Take care.